So, quick question. How come in Christmas movies where Santa is a main character, nobody knows Santa Claus exists? Like in Elf, they're like, no one really believes in Santa Claus anymore, or, in Polar Express, you kind of lose your faith in Santa Claus and such. And how do they explain the presents the next morning? It never really makes sense to me. I don't get it. It's bound to be more interesting than anything in this movie. So Red One was directed by Jake Kasdan and it stars Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans, J.K. Simmons, Lucy Liu, a whole bunch of other people appear in this movie. And in this movie, Santa Claus is kidnapped. And so a hacker and Santa's bodyguard, they have to go try to find him before Christmas and hopefully save Christmas. So this was a movie that initially, like about this time last year, sounded really fun. Like Jake Kasdan previously directed the Jumanji movie starring Dwayne Johnson, so he was reteaming with them. And it's like, okay, this could be really interesting, along with Chris Evans, J.K. Simmons. This could be a lot of fun. And then I saw the trailers, and I'm like, oh no, this looks bad. This looks insanely bad. This looks like one of those Funny or Die SNL sketches that you'd see that's like, that is not a real movie. That is not a real movie. And somehow it is a real movie and it cost anywhere between $200 and $250 million to make. But I am going to be fair, talk about what I do like, what I don't like about this movie, because after watching it, I will say, I didn't despise this movie, but I can't wholeheartedly recommend this movie either. So let's just dive right in. First off, there are a couple good ideas here and there, a couple interesting lore in this movie, particularly how they throw in Krampus and Gryla in this movie. There are some cool ideas. The production design looks pretty cool as well, like the North Pole itself looks pretty cool, and all these other worlds where they kind of go to is like, okay, that's kind of interesting. There are a couple actors who I thought did a good job. Chris Evans, among the main cast in this movie, I thought he did the best. He's kind of our eyes and ears because he's the one who's kind of like, are you being serious right now? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, he's probably the only character where, it's like you are taking the ridiculousness to the appropriate level, whereas some actors are not. But I'll get into that. The actors who played Gryla and Krampus did a decent job. They were probably the best parts of the movie, if I'm being honest. There are a couple laughs here and there that kind of caught me off guard. It's like, okay, admittedly, that was kind of funny. It's like a brief chuckle, but you probably won't remember too many of the jokes, unfortunately. I saw this movie yesterday, and I kind of am struggling a little bit with some of the jokes, if I'm being honest, but I do remember laughing at some of them. And I will say this, too. As bad as this movie looked, it is not painful to sit through. There's not a lot of moments in this movie where it's like, everything about this movie is just painful, and just like, and at no point did I ever think to myself, make this stop. Which, it's weird that that's a positive these days, but considering I was expecting absolute garbage, like a huge lump of coal for this movie, I guess that's a positive. But let's talk about the things I really don't like about this movie. First off, pretty much everyone else in this movie is just wasted, or Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson is not particularly great in this movie. He tries at times to kind of throw out a joke here and there, but it doesn't quite work out as well as Chris Evans. He doesn't do it as well as Chris Evans does. I just felt like he took the role a little too seriously, which I guess that's kind of the point of his character. Lucy Liu is in this movie. You literally could have put any actor in this movie in her part, and it wouldn't have mattered. J.K. Simmons, I heard a lot of people talk about how great J.K. Simmons is as Santa Claus. And it's like, oh boy, I'm really excited to see him as Santa Claus. And he's wasted too. He has one or two okay scenes, mostly with Dwayne Johnson and such, and kind of seeing how he delivers all the toys and such on Christmas. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool, but at the same time, he was just wasted. He was just, why? Bonnie Hunt's also in this movie. She's in this movie. And also, there's a polar bear in this movie too, who's kind of on a lot of the marketing and showing a lot of the trailers and such. It's like he's the one who says he's a level 4 naughty lister and such. That is his only moment in the entire movie. So yeah, let's put him in all the marketing for this movie. Makes total sense. Makes about as much sense as spending $250 million on this movie. Meanwhile, the tone of this movie is just completely off. The movie is struggling to find a tone between taking it as ridiculous as you possibly can and trying to be as serious as humanly possible. And I'm just like, dude, pick a lane. I would prefer if this movie was, goofy, over the top, played into ridiculousness and such. Chris Evans was probably the closest aspect to that. He was the one who was kind of questioning everything that was going on in this movie. But everyone else around him is just basically saying everything like it's the most serious thing humanly possible. Like, I just couldn't believe it at times. Also, this movie is without a doubt too long. I feel like if this movie was 90 minutes, I feel like if this movie also was less serious and a little bit more fun, this would have been one of those Christmas movies that, I feel like people would watch every year. And I feel like this is just a movie that's just out in theaters rather than something that you would want to watch every year. And also, there are so many cliches in this movie that it is ridiculous. Like, tell me if you've heard some of these cliches before. A father doesn't have time for his kid. Someone who was really good at their job is now retiring and they're very close to their retirement. Okay, someone around Christmas time is losing their Christmas spirit. You've seen it all before. You've seen it done before, better, in other movies, specials, everything. This movie is... I feel bad because I don't think this movie is awful. Like, I don't feel like I'm going to put this on my top 10 worst of the year list, but this movie is also just misguided. Like, I feel like it's not bad enough to say I have no Christmas cheer after watching this movie, but it's not good enough to give you Christmas cheer, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but I feel like that's kind of the best way to describe this movie. So even though there are cool designs and such of the characters and such, and some cool ideas with the lore of Christmas and such, and the production design's pretty good, and some of the actors are okay, there's some laughs here and there, and it's admittedly not the most painful movie you could sit through. There is a lot of aspects of this movie that are just off. Like, a lot of the actors are kind of wasted, or they kind of don't really have any reason to be in this movie. The tone is off. It's too long at times. It is incredibly cliched, and I don't know. I can definitely see this being a big streaming hit, right around Christmas time, but I don't see it being like a Christmas classic that people will go back to every holiday season. Like, I know I have mine, you have yours, and this definitely won't be one of mine. I'll give Red One 1.5 out of 4 stars, stream it. So, what are your favorite Christmas movies or least favorite Christmas movies? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.